Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Michael, heading up Wing Chun Ireland. I'm just here with Brian. We're just doing a little bit of training together, and he's making me aware of, say, JKD and the various stages of cultivation, and just mirrors the approach that we take, not only in Wing Chun, but in all skill-based activities, where you're moving from a stage of unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. You can do it, you don't have to think about it, but you have to go through the mechanical stage, and it's a bit of a necessary evil, and that's fine, but at least it gives you a good reference point when you have further problems, so you can go back to the mechanical stage, or if you're teaching it to students, you have to go back to the mechanical stage. But really for yourself, once you leave the mechanical stage, that's what we're looking for, unconscious competence. And when it comes to Wing Chun, again, it's not about techniques, it's about principles, bridging forwards, using our opponent's force, all this kind of stuff, but that's a bit abstract for a lot of people. So we tend to use techniques as examples of abstract concepts, and but again, they're only examples, and that's all. And one of the main things about Wing Chun is that, first of all, we have to use the center line. And if you just remember at the end of the first Matrix movie, Neo, he no longer sees the world as we do. He just sees it in terms of green grid lines. This for us is the same with the idea of the center line, or more specifically, the shared center line between two people. We're always bridging along, say, the shared center line. That's one thing. Instead of taking big movements, all things being equal, if you go along a straight line, it's the shortest distance, the other person will get hit first. So keep bridging forwards all the time, and if there's nothing there, then the other person will get hit. If there is something there and contact is made, then we'll start to use the idea of a spring. And once you have those three ideas, always bridging forwards along the height of the shared center line and using a spring when applicable, it's very hard for you to go wrong. And if you go against somebody who has more techniques, they say don't box a boxer, because, well, they're better at boxing.
Good point.
Don't wrestle a wrestler. They're going to kill you. Don't play their game. Play your own game. So if somebody has more techniques than you, and I've come across this a lot over the years, people would have maybe more techniques than me or whatever like that, and if you just keep going forwards, like, you'll be the winner, you just hit them, and life is easy, which is what it's all about. But anyway, so so three things: keep bridging forwards at the height of the shared center line, using spring force where applicable. So let's just say, this is only an example, that's all. But I'll start off with having a little bit of a spring, and I can start off with a spring. If Brian pushes towards me a little bit, I can decelerate to allow elastic potential energy to build up. And if Brian drops his hand, I didn't do that, Brian gave me that, and then I can add my own force onto it. I'm not going to do it, but as my hand is springing forwards, when Brian drops his hand, I can add my own force onto it. This is how we make use of our opponent's force, and we use it against them, and we add our own force to the force our opponent gives us. Now, if Brian doesn't drop his hand, well, then I will do a pax out to release the spring. And that just happens automatically without conscious thought. The only conscious thought is actually doing the pax out. Everything else just follows. We're just going to slow it down just to look at some examples. So when I spring forwards, I'm bridging forwards, and Brian is bridging forwards as well along the height of the shared center line. Now, for example, when we get there, one thing that I can do is, you can use your hand to do a paxo, to move something out of the way. You can use your elbow. You can actually use your elbow to do a paxo as well. So I can lift up my elbow and I can remove his hand out of the way. So for example, if I do this, I can lift up the elbow to remove his hand out of the way, so I can do a lapso and then faxo. We're only going as far as there for the moment. Another thing that can happen is that when I get to here, for example, I can do a lapso and a faxo. But if Brian pushes hard and fast, it's not that I don't have to do a lapso, I probably can't do a lapso. So if I try to do a lapso when Brian pushes really hard and fast, I just can't do it. He's pushing directly in, and I just can't do it. Whereas I don't need to, I can't do a lapso, but I don't need to do a lapso. He pushes hard and fast, and then I can just do something afterwards. So we'll do that again. He pushes hard and fast. And what's happening is, as he's pushing I'm maintaining the spring, the elastic potential energy, and that just springs up into him. And then I can finish him off any way I want. And then, for example, if he doesn't push so much, well then what I can do is I can bridge forwards with my elbow, like this. And as I bridge forwards with my elbow, there's a bit of a scraping going on. His hand is scraping off my wrist, and I can go up like this. So he can do all the work. If he gives me a big push, he does all the work. But if he doesn't push, I can still bridge forwards with the elbow. But it's not a case where my hand goes limp, because if my hand goes limp, that's no good. And I don't bring my elbow and my hand forwards, I'd never get anywhere. Whereas just have the same amount of contact here and let that scrape forwards. I know you're in here like that. But again, it's not a technique, that's just something you can do. And then as an example, if we do that, and let's just say whether I do or don't do a lapse out, we go up here and Brian's hand comes up again. Brian's hand is here at the moment, but look, I can just do the same thing here, because whether his hand is here and I do this, or this hand is here, I do this. But my opponent, Brian, is doing this artificially just for the sake of the video. He's not making contact on our shared centre line. He's making contact out here. So again, I can just faxo up, or I could bring it out of the way. But again, it's not techniques based. It's unconscious competence. So I can just come up like this, or I can do this. So if he's stiffer and stronger, just do that. Or with this hand, again, it can just come up and coming in. Or if Brian makes contact more towards my elbow, now from here, it will be harder to bring this across, and I'd only be opening myself up. So if he makes contact here, we just do a lapse out here, and then, you know, come up and do something. And these are only examples. Or if Brian makes contact in the middle, well then again, I could push across like this. Or if it's in the middle, this hand can come up. But again, they're only examples. You have something called implicit memory and explicit memory. Explicit memory is if somebody asks you, what did you do with your weekend? Explicit memory is kind of based on words. You're thinking, you're saying, oh, I did this and I did this, using words. Implicit memory is the type of memory that you have when you're cycling a bike. There's no words involved, it's based upon feeling. And what we're trying to do when it comes to, well, I'm talking about Wing Chun, but maybe it applies to the JKD stages of cultivation as well, is moving from the words-based explicit memory to a feeling-based, excuse me, implicit memory.
As Bruce said, we want to get to the stage where it hits all by itself, rather than basically what you just said. It's the exact same principle. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah. And just by bridging forwards along the height of the centre line and making best use of spring force, the hit will happen by itself. You don't really have to do anything. And if somebody asks you afterwards, what did you do? Well, God, I actually don't know. So these are just some examples. So you can bridge forwards like this, and if there's one constant, and we're just playing at the moment, there's one constant. Now, I didn't try to hit Brian, but because he artificially just was a little bit slower with his hand, just for the sake of the video, I just keep bridging, and you'll win that way without actually having to try. So again, they're just a little bit of examples. Maybe it just kind of shows the bigger picture a little bit. And when I talk about the bigger picture, it just means that, like, I'll use certain key words, and Brian will come along to my school and still teach my guys what I'm teaching, what I'm teaching them, but he'll have a different key word, and it just helps my students get a little bit of a bigger picture. And then it may be the same, maybe by me saying the same thing as Brian was saying, but I have a different metaphor or a different key word, and just with the cross-referencing, it might just help to see things just a little bit bigger. And is there anything you'd like me to talk about?
No, I think exactly saying what we're kind of brainstorming about. It's again, just one scenario. It's the case of okay, we know we have certain techniques around the body, regardless of what we have, but it really depends on what your energy gives me. So if you go across, and again, this is obviously very, very slow motion, I can lapse out here all day long, but if it's faster, then as long as I keep bridging, it's the most important concept, is what we're trying to. If you don't bridge on linear techniques, is what we're talking about. Someone maybe with a higher range of techniques will counter you a lot quicker. But as long as you're bridging, and I think the key word is on the height of the shared centre line. If you bridge above or below it, well then it could be different also.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it, guys.
Great.
Thanks.